Hello, thank you for joining me today. Today I want to discuss limit switches that's on a electric air handler and a gas furnace. Limit switches, what they do, how they operate, and how to diagnose it and how to replace them. Now, the first thing you want to know about a limit switch is what it does and what it's used for. You got different types of limit switches that have different functions. Now, I'm gonna start with the fan limit switch. This is gonna be on some of the older units, but still you'll still see some of the most newer units with fan limit switches. And the older style is the fan limit is we're gonna call it the main fan limit switch. Now the main fan limit switch was just used just to cut the fan on whenever the furnace actually lit up and heated up. And once it got hot enough on the inside, then it would cut the fan on. And by doing that, it had a you know the blower motor has power wires going to it. You have your common wire, which I have to do a video on electricity so you can understand what I mean by it. But it has a common wire, and then it has a speed, and and what the main fan limit switch does is takes that instead of letting that fan come on, it's gonna take the leg of power and hold it, and then once that heats up, then it's gonna allow the fan to cut on. And then once the furnace satisfies and the thermostat cuts off, then it's going to shut the fan off once that air cools it off. So now you got your that's a main fan limit switch. Another switch that we have limit switch is a rollout switch. It's called a flame rollout switch. This switch here is typically and only used for if your heat exchangers are clogged, or if your inducer motor pressure switch failed or anything. If something happened to where the exhaust is not letting out the exhaust is like it's supposed to, then it's gonna backfire inside the heat exchanger and come out of the burners. And what that's going to do is going to create heat. So you have these switches on the side here that if they get hot, they're going to shut the gas valve off, and it's going to stop the unit from producing any more heat. Another heat limit switch that we do have is the limit switch that goes on the blower housing here, and that one is used in case the fan motor gets hot inside of it. If it for some reason gets too hot, or if it's some kind of reason it's fire breaks out or anything, this is going to stop the unit from producing heat also. Um, that's pretty much all the furnace limit switches. And the higher you go, like on a higher efficiency, you're going to have limit switches on the inducer draft motor. But they are going to do the same thing. And just the whole concept of the of the limit switches is just to cut heat off, or to give safety so it won't keep producing heat when it's at an unsafe temperature. On electric units, it's a little bit different. Electric units have sequencers. Sequencers are they're limit switches also that cut on with 24 volts. They cut on and they cut off when power is given to them. And when power is given to them, what it does is it heats up a coil here. And once that coil heats up, then it releases the power. And you got power on one side here, then you got power on the other side here. And once the thermostat sends power to this 24 volts, it releases the power to the main voltage, and then your heat strips will be able to come on. Once your heat strips come on, then you have a fan relay or sequencer for your fan, and it's going to also cut your fan on. So that's the way electricity works with these limit switches. Fan relays, you're gonna find fan relays in the units nowadays um, they have control boards, circuit boards that are actually controlling the fan, and which is controlling the when it's sending power out and everything, instead of these older units with sequencers and limit switches. Well, they are going to have limit switches for safety, but the control board is actually taking the place of fan relays and hot main limit switches. But that's some electric units you're going to have contactors in, but they are going to just it's either going to be a contactor or a sequencer is going to cut um, the heat strips on, and then it's going to be a sequencer, something timed to be able to time. Some of them have time delay where it cuts the fan on. So that's what limit switches do. That's what they are. That's how they operate. And whenever you have a limit switch that's out on a newer furnace, it's actually going to blink a code. It's going to say, limit switch found open, and what you have to do is get your volts meter and start checking and seeing which one doesn't have power. And I didn't want to really get too far into that because that's technical. Most guys, I mean, if you're a technician, you already know how to work on those. If you don't, I don't recommend someone that hasn't been trained to do this, because you have to do this with the power actually on to find out which one is bad. And if you or I am going to do videos on how to troubleshoot on that, but right now I'm just doing all basics so you'll know how to identify a problem. And maybe you can, you know, take the time out and change it and just look at the video and be able to, do it. But I'm not a, HVAC instructor or anything. I'm just giving information that I have and giving it to you. So um, if you do um, find how to use a voltmeter, that'll be great, because you'll be able to learn how to diagnose a lot of these problems yourself and fix them yourself. But limit switches, the number one rule about those is you just can't put any limit switch on there. And one rule of thumb is the manufacturer made this unit to work a specific way, and you have to continue to let it work that way. Don't bypass switches. If it don't work, it don't work. You got to wait on your part to get in, because the person that tries to bypass the limit switch until you order one or get one, that's how things happen, and that's how dangerous things happen, because you tried to get by. So if it don't work, then wait for your part to get in so you can replace it the correct way, the safe way, because those limit switches are on there to protect the furnace and to protect you and your family. So limit switches have to have they open and close at certain temperatures. It can't be off. It can't be off, or it has to be the exact same limit switch that came off. It can't be 5 degrees less. It'll be 10 degrees less. I mean, it has to be the exact same one, so the unit can operate as it should. Because if you start manipulating it, then you're gonna just lose the lack of. You're gonna use you're gonna miss the efficiency of the unit. So don't mess with any limit switches if you don't have the exact one to replace them. And that goes for sequencers. They're open and closed at certain times, and you know you want to replace the one with the exact same one that you took off. And other than that, those are limit switches. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll be putting up more videos. Thank you.